In the autumn of 1984, the wind howled with a disquieting timbre through the skeletal branches of the trees in the remote town of Tanglewood. It was a place where shadows nestled with abandon, shrouding the unlit corners of the streets in an oppressive gloom. A perpetual overcast sky draped the town, as if nature itself had taken umbrage against the inhabitants. The air hung heavy with moisture and an unplaceable odor, an amalgamation of damp earth and something that whispered of decay. It was in this off-kilter ambience that Elias Mercer returned home after several years away, his heart heavy with dread and a sense of foreboding that he could not shake. Elias was a man captured by his own thoughts, a solitary figure more comfortable with the written word than with the whisperings of people. He had pursued a career in anthropology, diving into ancient civilizations and their mythos, trying to decipher the unspeakable truths buried beneath layers of history. Tanglewood, sometimes considered a sleepy backwater, churned with its own unsettling legends, tales of strange lights in the sky, disappearances, and eerie sounds emitted from the woods. But for Elias, they were stories destined for study, not belief. Until now, navigating the town felt as if he were intruding upon a relic of some ancient past. As he walked the streets, he could feel the weight of the townsfolk's stares, their eyes glinting with a mix of recognition and suspicion. He tried to ignore the prickle of unease crawling up his spine. The faces he recognized were worn and gaunt, as if time had played a cruel joke upon them. No one spoke to him. Perhaps they feared that the veil of normality would be further sullied if they acknowledged the return of a man who had once sought the hidden truths of the universe. Elias took refuge in his childhood home, now eerie and impersonal. The familiar creaks of the floorboards echoed around him as he delved into his mother's old journals. They contained frantic scribbles about the singing shadows and watchers from beyond the stars, fragments of her unraveling sanity, or perhaps a glimpse into something darker that lurked at the fringes of human understanding. He read late into the night, the remnants of his childhood fears flooding his mind, whispering to him through the hushed darkness. The next day brought a disquieting development. Strange occurrences began to unfold. It started with the flickering of lights, a quickening stutter caught in a dismal rhythm. The townsfolk spoke in hushed whispers about children laughing in the woods, their laughter resonating like echoes of distant, otherworldly sounds. Yet, there were no children. On his evening walks, Elias noticed a dense fog creeping in from the forest, swallowing the world whole, thick like molasses. As he stood on the porch one evening, he could have sworn he glimpsed movement in the underbrush, a slithering shadow that danced at the periphery of his vision, only to vanish when he turned. The following night, he was awakened by an insistent scratching against his window. Heart racing, he peered through the curtain to find nothing but the curtain of night. But as he turned back to his bed, a soft, almost melodic humming began to seep through the walls, swirling and weaving through the air like an entrancing lullaby. This was no ordinary hum. It entangled with the deepest recesses of his mind, tugging at him as if some alien presence sought to beckon him deeper into night. Every instinct screamed for him to flee, yet his feet remained rooted in place. With each encounter with the unseen force, his grip on reality began to slip. The faces of the townsfolk grew unsettling, their expressions blurring into conspiracy and fear. Elias found himself plagued by a gnawing paranoia. They knew something. Their furtive glances and hushed tones conspired against him. Was he losing his mind, or was there truly something in the abyssal forest? Late at night, he would stare into the mirror, desperately searching for the man he used to be, but the face that stared back seemed distorted, a stranger filled with turmoil. Days turned into surreal weeks. One fog-laden evening, driven by a mix of madness and intrigue, Elias ventured into the woods. Beneath the twisted branches, the air felt compressed, like walking through a murky sea. The melodic hum intensified, coaxing him deeper into the heart of the forest. Each step weighed heavier than the last, and he could feel the vibrations thrumming through the earth beneath him. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was alive, a pulsing entity that whispered secrets woven into the very fabric of the universe. As he pushed forward, He reached a clearing. It was bathed in an ethereal light, casting elongated shadows around him. A grand structure loomed in the center, covered in vines that pulsated rhythmically. The architecture defied conventional geometry, twisting and bending into impossible angles. Elias dug into his memory for the tales of Tanglewood, whispered warnings of an ancient altar where realms converged, an intersection of the earthly and the cosmic. And then he saw them, figures clad in dark robes, faces hidden in the depths of obscurity, standing before a chasm that seemed to vibrate in tune with the cosmic hum. He couldn't tear his gaze away as they began to chant, voices rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore of sanity. They beckoned to the unspeakable in the void, and Elias felt a pull, an intoxicating desire to join them, to shed the shackles of his humanity for something eternal. Elias tried to turn away, to flee from this den of madness, but his limbs felt leaden, as if the very essence of the forest compelled him to stay. The chanting escalated, rising to a fevered pitch that throbbed in his skull. He was caught in a trance, locked in the stares of the robed figures as their eyes glimmered with unholy knowledge. They whispered his name, echoing it as if weaving it into the fretful tapestry that bound their existence to the dark fabric of interstellar forces. In that moment, fragments of forbidden knowledge flooded his mind, images of incomprehensible beings, civilizations sprawling across galaxies, thoughts transcending into timelessness. The realization clawed at him. They were not just human, they were conduits for something vast, something that existed outside the parameters of existence as we understood it. A slithering sensation slithered across his skin, and he felt the gales of cold dread suffuse him, drowning him in liquid terror. Before he could comprehend the enormity of it all, a blinding flash erupted from the chasm, engulfing everything in its radiant maw. The otherworldly energy pooled and surged outward, warping the very essence of existence. Elias screamed, a primal sound lost against the cacophony of elements colliding. Reality rebooted around him, folding and crumpling as he was expelled from the clearing, thrown back onto the forest floor. He awoke alone beneath the stars, disoriented and gasping. The moon hung swollen above him, casting a ghostly pallor over the landscape. He stumbled home, shaken to the core, bewildered by the magnitude of what he had glimpsed. Days passed indistinguishably. The melody of the hum became a haunting lullaby that played on repeat in his mind. He attempted to shake his paranoia, but the townsfolk's eyes burned with knowledge he could never fathom, taunting him with layers of reality that spiraled beyond his grasp. What if the wilderness, the townsfolk, the very fabric of Tanglewood was a sentient entity striving to shield its unfathomable secret? His perception collapsed into a haze of doubt, the encounters, the whispers, and the enigmatic light. Adjustments in time now felt illogical, as if reality itself was more a fluid construct than a firm ground. One evening, Elias stood at the edge of the forest, the darkness feeling more like an extension of himself than a boundary. He could hear the hum, swirling and weaving, vibrating with a language that felt untranslatable yet deeply familiar. The sensation of being pulled, of being a pawn in a game far beyond human understanding, reared its head. The trees seemed to beckon, shadows lurching toward him with the promise of forbidden knowledge. Perhaps to step into the symphony of the unknown was to embrace an inevitable fate. Without thinking, he stepped into the dark. Days turned into a blurry sequence of events, his existence melting into the ether. The line between dreams and reality faded, and Elias became an echo, the remnants of a man entangled in cosmic threads beyond comprehension. What had become of him in that ethereal space, in the unfolding chasm of timelessness? No one remembered him as the whispers outside morphed into a singular hum, a beckoning that would attract the unsuspecting souls of Tanglewood, the next bearers of dark secrets waiting just beyond the veil, in the perpetual twilight shadowed by starlight. The end was merely another beginning, a continuation of the cycle of beings lost to a melody, the cosmic dance of the unknown, and the door to madness, ever ajar.